You can have all the awareness. You can recognize all your patterns and behaviors, and still, change won't stick. Hey, I'm glad you're here. This is Seated Soul Rising. It's a place where we talk about how to make long and lasting change in our lives. I'm Peter, a businessman, a coach. I study and work with patterns for a living. I've had the chance to work through a lot of patterns of my own, usually the hard way. Today, we're going to talk about that really uncomfortable place between knowing better and doing better. We've all had those moments where we can practically see ourselves making the wrong choice in real time. We say something that we know is going to cause a fight. We get a call from someone we care about who needs our help. We don't have the bandwidth, and instead of saying no, we say yes, and then we feel guilty about it. Society treats change like a finish line. We read the book, we do the journal, we put it on the shelf, we finally figure out why we are the way we are. But knowing why you do something rarely stops you from doing it. That's why self-help's a $65 billion a year industry. Collecting information feels productive, but eventually it's just a more sophisticated form of hiding. Change doesn't happen because you have a map. It happens when you start taking steps. Now, I had to learn to stop overanalyzing my own behavior to death, but never doing anything about it. It's vital to practice change when things are good. Once the house is on fire, it's too late to learn to use a fire extinguisher. Um, so it's essential to practice, and it will feel weird, trying to implement these sorts of things when there's no crisis. It'll feel weird to you, it'll feel well to your partner or your friends, but it's essential to do. So let's bridge the gap between knowing and doing. Today we're looking at tool number 2, which is the action anchor. The first step, I guess, in this process is admitting what you already know. For me, this had to do with resentments. I would keep a calm exterior while I was having a conversation, and meanwhile inside I was cataloging every single grievance that came up until the wall of resentment was so thick I couldn't even see the other person anymore. There was no more communicating. Now, I could draw you a really fancy diagram of why I was doing it. I understood why I was doing it, but I was still doing it. Maybe ask yourself, what's the storyline I already know by heart, but I'm still using to hide? Step 2, what keeps happening anyway? So we look at what keeps happening anyway, despite knowing the old script, we allow it to play out. In my case, this was emotional withdrawal. My brain defaulted to the safe silence instead of what was logical. So I wouldn't say what I was feeling. I wouldn't say if I was frustrated or angry or my feelings were hurt. I would just shut down. The other person could see me shut down, and then the whole thing was over. You need to name the specific action that you keep repeating, even when you know it's toxic, if you want the action to change. Step 3, things I've tried but would like to get better at. Now, this one can be fun. You need to look for a different angle on something that you're already doing. The goal isn't to throw out your history or any of the progress that you've made or be harder on yourself, but to finally use it to find vulnerable clarity. What's a small, slightly uncomfortable response you haven't actually tested yet? For me, that looked like finding the language underneath the reaction. Like admitting I was hurt. Saying out loud, this hurts my feelings. And it was so hard to do. But once you start to do that, the response is usually better than you think it's going to be. People want to know what's going on with you. They want to know what's going on inside you. And if you tell them, it usually starts to build a bridge. And then it makes taking the action the next time again easier. The last step number 4, a different response for this week. So focusing on the action shift. We need to basically identify a concrete action that we can take, a physical move that forces a different outcome. For me, one really valuable action anchor that I found is taking a deep breath, or 3. Give yourself 10 seconds. 10 seconds before you ask yourself what you're going to do, before you try and analyze what's going on, before you get stuck in your mind. Just give yourself a minute to calm down and breathe and focus, and then take the next step. Awareness is the starting line, and action is how you get to the finish. If you recognized your own version of yourself in the tool today, let me know in the comments below. I put the action anchor, the entire tool, in a link. It's on my website, but there's no wall, there's no gate. You can just click download and it'll come right to you. So if you found it helpful, please just take it. And while you're down there getting the tool, if you liked what you heard today, you'd like to do more of this unpacking with me, please click subscribe so we can revisit this again next week. And next week, we're looking at the mid-pattern pause card, which is for when you're halfway down the rabbit hole and need an emergency exit. Thanks. See you then.